Now that we've got a basic sequence assembled, it still is lacking. We have an interview with our subject, but there's no supporting material, no B-roll to illustrate the story, no music to really bring to life the sequence. So we need to add some material. And there's a right way and a wrong way. I'm going to show you a way that's organized and also pretty easy to apply. Go ahead and close the current project you're working with. There's no need to save the changes. And choose to open up from folder 6, 6.1. Here we have the rough sequence built out, and it matches pretty much what you did before with the audio transitions. You'll notice that there are 3 video tracks and 4 audio tracks. We'll talk more about the audio tracks in a moment. Next to each track is a visibility icon. This is very much like layers in Photoshop. As you start to stack things on top of each other, they begin to composite. For example, if we go in here to the video sources and grab one of our B-roll shots of Jason singing and place that on a higher track here, you'll notice that the audio and video was added to the sequence.
First years of me playing that, always fit for me.
And when that track disappears or that clip ends, the lower clip becomes visible. Now I'm going to undo that for a moment because we don't actually want both audios in there, but you can see that the stacking order does matter. These tracks tend to be pretty easy to organize. I suggest you put your main interview here on video track 1, and then we'll add all of the supporting footage to video track 2. Later, we can use video track 3 to hold our graphics. All right, let's go forward. Besides using multiple video tracks, it's a good idea to use multiple audio tracks. This will make it much easier to keep things organized. Let me show you how you can do this. In our sequence here, I see we have an interview, and we also have room for other material. Now, in this case, the audio on track 1 and 2 is pretty much identical.
The audience is feeling something.
Let's turn off and mute the track for A2.
And I have the ability to go in one direction.
You'll notice in this case, the audio continues to be delivered from track 1, and both speakers, the left and right channel, are coming through. I'm going to go ahead and delete track 2. I can right-click on track 2 here in the empty area and choose Delete Track, and it goes away. But I need a few more tracks. In fact, I want to go ahead and take advantage of these a bit more, so I'm going to add 2 more tracks. Right-click in the empty area and choose Add Tracks. And I can specify if I want to add any more video tracks or audio tracks. I'm going to say 0 audio tracks plus another 2 audio tracks and no submixes, which is a specialized audio track for combining or merging audio. When I click OK, the new tracks are added. Additionally, we can go under the window menu here to the audio track mixer. This allows me to name the tracks. For example, we can call this A1 track Interview. I can call A2 Natural Sound from the B-roll. I can call A3 Sound Effects. And A4 Music 1 and Music 2. And you'll notice down here, if we actually expand these a little bit, that you can see that name. Let's mouse over the sequence here and press the accent grave key. What you can easily do is change the height of these tracks. When you drag here, you'll notice that one gets bigger. If we hold down the Shift key and drag, you'll notice they all get bigger, making it easier to see exactly where things go. These labels can come in handy as you're working. Now, while you can add multiple video tracks, you cannot rename the video tracks. So these you should just keep organized. Like we said, we'll put V1 for the interview, V2 for B-roll, and V3 for graphics. If you ever need to, you can also click on this dividing line to move it up or down to make more room. Additionally, from the wrench icon here, you could choose options such as minimize all tracks or expand all tracks to make it easier to see the content. When you're ready, just press the accent grave key to return the sequence. I'm going to go ahead and minimize those for now to make a bit more room as I work. Let's go on to a new snapshot project and we'll begin to add B-roll to a higher video track. Close the current project. There's no need to save the changes. Then choose File Open and open up 6.3. If I look at this, you'll see that the sequence is built like before. And if you take a look at the audio track mixer, things are similarly named. Narration, Nat Sound, Music 1, Music 2. Earlier, I used slightly different names. The concept is the same. This is our interview. This is going to be our natural sound or sound effects, plus our 2 tracks of music, and the master track for total volume. What we're going to focus on now is mostly B-roll. So we need to start to place some things in. To start, I'm going to lasso everything and just drag it down to make a little bit of room. Now what I want to do is add a shot of the performer. Let's go into our video bin and I'll double click to open up B-roll. If I want to make more room, I can even drag this up top here so I can see it better and switch to icon view. Now I get a pretty good idea of the footage. What I want to do is start to place some of these shots that tell a story. The exact order is up to you, but we're going to experiment here and add in some shots. You'll see that things have been subclipped and there's more to choose from. Let's find a good shot here. We'll take this and mark an in point, and then play a little bit until we get into our first soundbite.
First years of me playing out were always with the band. I never played solo. And then as I got older, I thought maybe a solo.
Let's come to him a little sooner. We'll mark the out point there. And I see that it's about 9 seconds. I either need to pick a shot that's long enough or more than one shot. Let's try this reveal shot here, Garage Slider 2A. I'll patch that up to video track 2, disabling video track 1 so it doesn't erase it, and patch the sound effects here down to A2. But there's a good chance that since I'm going to lay in music, I'm just going to turn that off for a moment and try it with just the visuals. Let's apply an override edit. Now in this case, it's giving me a choice. On the right, it tells me that the clip is 9:10. On the left here, it's trying to use the full duration of 17 seconds. So what I need to do is mark an in or an out point. And let's make the edit. And I'll tell it to ignore the source out point and choose OK. There it is. Let's have a look. He's playing, looks pretty good.
First years of me playing out were always with the band. I never played solo. And then as I got older...
and it cuts to him. I like that, but there's a little bobble in the shot. Right there. What I can do is change that. I'll press X to mark the shot, come back here, and move the in point past the bobble and set a new in point, and make the edit. If needed, I could tell it to ignore the source out point. And we have our edit. Now let's look. Looks good.
The first years of me playing out were always with the band. I never played solo. And then as I got older, I thought maybe a solo career might be a better fit for me. And so the last few years have been headed in that direction.
So now he's talking about a solo career. Let's go back to the B-roll and find another shot to bridge.
A lot of times it's a small audience of 7,500 people.
I want a shot to cover this space here, so I'll mark an in and an out. And I know that we have a shot of him at a performance venue. I'll come to the multi-camera clips here. And drag through until I find a good shot. Let's take something with a little more movement. There we go. We'll make the edit, and it adds it to the sequence.
For me. And so the last few years have been headed in that direction.
I like how it's pushing in.
It's a small audience of 7,500 people, and the audience
Feels good. Now, if you've made an edit and you want to tweak it slightly, you can use this great tool here called Slip. This allows you to drag the shot. And as you can see here, we can refine where the clip begins or ends. And it's just making little adjustments. That changed the beginning and the end of the clip equally.
headed in that direction.
There it started a little late, so let's drag forward until the movement is already pushing in.
The last few years have been headed in
That
that
looks
direction.
good.
A lot of times it's a small audience of 7,500 people.
Please go ahead and continue experimenting by adding more shots to the sequence. In a moment, I'll have you open up a snapshot project to see how I built it so we can continue working. But I'd like you to experiment here and get some practice with adding clips to your sequence. Once you've placed several shots into a sequence, you might want to refine their order a little bit. Let's look at how we can swap a shot as well as revisit trimming. Close the project that you're working with and navigate to your project bin. Open up 6.4, changing the order of shots. Let's go ahead and just reset this workspace. And we can switch to the assembly workspace to make a little more room. I'll press the backslash key to fit the sequence. Now, let's mute track 2. You'll notice that a few of the clips include the natural sound from the performance. We may use these in the final mix, but for right now, they're just going to be distracting as they're significantly louder than the spoken word portion. Let's look through the sequence here. I'll zoom in a little bit.
The first years of me playing out were always with the band. I never played solo. And then as I got older,
those two shots seem pretty good, but let's take a look at that edit point. We'll double click.
the first years of me playing out were always with the band. I never played solo.
Looking at the hand position, it's pretty close. And what I'm investigating is the position of the fingers. Let's click here in between and make a few small changes. That looks a little bit better. His left hand is in the same position on both sides. Spacebar to review.
The first years of me playing out were always with the band. I never played.
That looks good. Let's go to the next edit. We just need to highlight track 2, so that's what's based on the selection.
Been headed in that direction. A lot of times it's a small audience of 7,500 people, and
That shot seems good.
how I feel and how they feel, which is great. And I think that a lot of the people that come to see me play on a regular basis would
I like that, but I think we should stay on that shot a little longer.
great. And I think that a lot of the people that come to see me play on a regular basis would
What we can now do is select that edit point and just drag. Let's review the shot.
how I feel and how they feel, which is great. And I think that a lot of the people that come to see me play on a regular basis would vouch for me when I say
Feels
that
good.
I'm a little different in the sense that even if I'm having a rough day, once I start hitting that first note and singing the song, it kind of all goes away because I kind of get back into that zone really quickly. So that's music.
These two shots seem to be in the wrong order. He's talking about hitting the first note and singing the song, but we see singing the song and then hitting the note. We need to swap these. Now, you could drag this up and over and this one down and down again, but that's a lot of steps. If you select a clip here, you can hold down modifier keys. For example, Command and Option or Control and Option or Alt does a swap. and you see the two clips swap spaces.
Even if I'm having a rough day, once I start hitting that first note and singing the song,
And now when he's talking about singing the song, let's just move that shot up a little bit.
a rough day, once I start hitting that first note and singing the song, it kind of all goes away because I kind of get back into that zone really quickly. So music is just something I've always really been passionate about.
That works a lot better.
And as soon as I jump into it, I don't know, even after 300 shows last year, I can't wait to go play my show tonight. For me, I'm definitely a live musician, and I thrive off of being
That looks good.
performing and just the whole interaction of it. But there's something about the studio too, where you get to kind of come up with something from scratch and see how it develops. And that creative process is also a huge part of it for me. And I love that aspect too, but I can't imagine myself being a musician without the live performing aspect of it.
So far, so
People
good.
can find out a lot about me just by going to my website. It's kind of the hub of where you can find everything. I've got my Facebook links. I've got
I think we can get off of this shot a little sooner. So I'll drag it shorter, and it adjusts.
a lot about me just by going to my website. It's kind of the hub of where you can find everything. I've got my Facebook links.
And let's check the last shot for our close.
Visit it and find out where I am and go buy my stuff on iTunes. I would really appreciate that.
It looks good. All right, at this point, the shots seem to be in the right place and in the right order. Let's move to the next step of refinement. Let's do a few techniques to lock down the sequence so we're ready to move on to some of the refinement, such as color grading and audio. To do this, I'd like you to open up a snapshot project. Close the current project you're working with, and then choose Open Project. Open up 0605. Now what I want to do is just finesse things a little bit with some transitions. Let's take a look at this first shot, and I'll right-click and apply a default transition. I like the fade up.
First
Now,
years of me
the
playing
cut
out
seems
were always-
motivated
I never played solo.
because it was a smooth transition in action, just a different composition. But I want to dissolve back to our subject.
And then as I got older,
That looks good.
I thought maybe a solo.
Let's take a look at this next point here. And since it's a very similar environment, I'm going to try a different transition. In the video transitions category here, I'll go to the dissolve and try the dip to black. Let's see how that feels.
Better fit for me. And so the last few years have been headed in that direction.
I like that.
A lot of times it's a small audience of 7,500 people.
And let's do the same as a transition out.
And so the last few years have been headed in that direction. A lot of times it's a small audience of 7,500 people, and the audience.
That feels good, but I'm going to extend that shot just a little, since his hand gesture was coming in the middle of the transition.
People, and the audience is
That feels
something. I
better.
have the ability to go in one direction or another, depending on how I feel and how they feel.
In this case, we're not cutting from face to face, so I'll try just adding a regular transition with a simple dissolve.
Or another, depending on how I feel and how they feel, which is great.
That works well.
I think that a lot of the people that come to see
We can transition out.
me play on a regular basis would vouch.
I like that, but I think it needs to be just a little longer. And let's double click on that transition and enter a duration of 2 seconds.
The people that come to see me play on a regular basis would vouch for me when
I like
say
that.
I'm a little different in the sense that even if I'm having a rough day,
Let's do a dissolve in.
Once I start hitting that first note and singing the song, it kind of all goes away because I kind of get back into that zone really quickly. So music is just something
It definitely feels abrupt to go from face to face. So let's use that dip. And we'll make that a slower 2-second transition.
really quickly. So music is just something I've always
That
really
feels
been
good.
passionate about. And as soon as I
Let's do a cross dissolve here, going into the walk.
Jump into it. I don't know, even after 300 shows last year, I can't wait to go play my show tonight. For me, I'm definitely a live musician, and I thrive off of being
Seems good. Let's dissolve into this next one.
in front of audiences and really addicted to and performing and just the whole interaction of it. But
I like that, but let's do a little slower. 2 seconds.
really addicted to and performing and just the whole interaction of it. But there's something about the studio too where you get to kind of come up with something from scratch and see how it develops. And that creative process is also a huge part of it for me. And I love that aspect too, but I can't imagine myself being a musician with that.
In that case, the cut feels fine. It adds a little bit of energy, but we will dissolve into the next shot.
Without the live performing aspect of it.
Now this one we have to be careful. Let's zoom in here. Notice that the transition is just short enough other than the video underneath. But if for some reason the video were to end too soon, you might see a little flash in the middle of the transition, like that. So sometimes you have to click on that clip and extend it ever so slightly.
Live performing aspect of it. People can find out a lot about me just by going to my website. It's kind of the hub of where you can find everything.
Let's try a nice slow transition here with the dip to black. And we'll go with 2 seconds. And drag that out.
By going to my website, it's kind of the hub of where you can find everything. I've got my Facebook
Looks good.
link.
And at the end here, let's try a dissolve, but we may need to use a dip.
Please visit it and find out where I am and go buy my stuff on iTunes.
I think the dip would be better, so I can just drag that on to replace it. There we go.
Visit it and find out where I am and go buy my stuff on iTunes. I would really appreciate that.
That feels a lot better. I'll press the backslash key to see the whole sequence, and we now have a nice polished track with both interview and B-roll. We're ready to move on to some additional refinement.